It's just such a pleasure today to be able to hear directly from our friends and colleagues at NIH about the Health and Extreme Weather Program. This is just a wonderful opportunity to hear about the success of this program as well as a look ahead. And so I'm going to start. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Greg Wellenius. I'm one of the three MPIs of the CAFE Research Coordinating Center. We'll talk more about CAFE in the second half. We'll start off the agenda today by hearing from NIH staff on the Health and Extreme Weather Program. And with that, Ashlinn, let me pass it to you, Ashlinn Quinn from NIHS, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Greg, and thanks everyone for being here. My name is Ashlinn Quinn, and I am a program officer at NIEHS, and I'm happy to just provide a brief intro to the Health and Extreme Weather Program out of NIH. I'm wondering if we could get the slides started. Great, I see them coming. Yep, so this is going to be a brief introduction to the NIH Health and Extreme Weather Program. Next slide, please. First, the all-important disclaimers that we don't have any declarations to share, and the views expressed in this presentation don't necessarily reflect the official policies of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the NIH or its components, nor does the inclusion of trade names, logos, trademarks, or references to outside entities constitute or imply an endorsement by any federal entity. Next slide, please. So I'll start with just, the big question: why is health and extreme weather research a priority for NIH? Next slide. This may be self-evident, I feel like, but here are some headlines from news articles about extreme weather events that have resulted in health impacts for people in many different regions within the United States and globally. These articles are from 2024, 2025, and I'm sure you can just think about recent events as well that have been in the news. So NIH, as we all recognize that extreme weather and natural disasters threaten the health of all people. Next slide. And extreme weather can impact health in direct and indirect ways. So we have some lists of potential ways that extreme weather events and extreme weather conditions can directly affect health on the left: injury, premature death, preterm birth, heat-related illness, those kinds of things. And then also these weather events affect health indirectly by some of the means that are listed there on the right, like chemical releases into the environment, interruptions to healthcare, and infrastructure disruption. And these are all really important to understand so that we can protect health from both the direct and indirect effects of extreme weather. Next slide, please. So for the NIH purposes, we define extreme weather, in this way: as unexpected, unusual, unpredictable, severe, or unseasonal weather, typically defined as occurring in the highest and lowest 5% of the historical distribution. But we also look at natural disasters that are weather-related and also emerging weather-related harms. And by that, we kind of have a very broad definition of what could be included there. So the things you see here are examples of weather-related hazards. And I think on the next slide, we have kind of a similar list of examples of weather-related hazards that are within the scope of the Health and Extreme Weather Program at NIH. So, if air pollution is influenced by heat events, for example, or if heat and precipitation influence the changing incidence of waterborne, vector-borne, or other infectious diseases, drought as a risk, wildfires that are prevalent, in the US and elsewhere, also harmful algal blooms that are influenced by meteorology and weather conditions. And then, of course, the weather conditions themselves, like extreme temperature, precipitation, and humidity, and big storms like hurricanes, and also things like snowpack loss. So these are just examples. It's not a fully inclusive list, but these are the types of things that we consider to be within the scope of the NIH Health and Extreme Weather Program. Next slide, please. And of course, within that, we realize that some groups do face higher risks than others. And those risks might be increased because of a variety of reasons. It could be because of a particular life stage that increases vulnerability to the impacts of weather. It could also be because of kind of where you are, where you work, that increases your exposure to the weather-related events. And there we're thinking about agricultural and construction workers, firefighters, other people who work outside or in extreme conditions, or who respond to these natural disasters as well. Your risk could be higher also because of underlying conditions or disabilities. So underlying chronic health problems, persons with disabilities could be at higher risk. And then, of course, there's a number of reasons why certain populations might already be burdened with additional stress, onto which the extreme weather adds another kind of precipitating factor, if you will, that will increase your risk even more. Next slide. So that was kind of like the motivation for this area of research. And now what are we doing at NIH to address the health effects of extreme weather? Go to the next slide, please. So I think maybe you're aware, but if not, I'm happy to say that the NIH has a health and extreme weather program. Sometimes we call this HUE by its acronym. But the mission of this program is really to understand and address the direct and indirect health impacts of extreme weather, including the things I just mentioned, which are weather-related natural disasters and emerging weather-related harms. And the overall program purpose is to support critical health research, disseminate findings to the public, and catalyze interventions that promote health in the wake of extreme weather occurrences. Next slide, please. I want to emphasize that this is an NIH-wide program. It's not, you may know that the NIH is made up of 27 different institutes and centers. I am a program officer at NIEHS, the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, which is depicted here in the center of this diagram. That really just means that my institute coordinates this program. But as you can see by all the spokes around the diagram, at this point, we actually have 17 NIH Institute centers and offices that are actively participating in the Health and Extreme Weather program. Their acronyms are there. You don't need to worry about those acronyms so much, but by the conditions and organ systems and populations that are represented here on the page, you can really see that this Health and Extreme Weather program is something that affects multiple organ systems, multiple populations, and is of interest to just many, many different parts of the NIH. Next slide. So the goals of our extreme weather program, Health and Extreme Weather program at NIH, are the following: to understand health outcomes of exposures associated with extreme weather and weather-related natural disasters, to assess the short and long-term health risks across the lifespan and among populations at heightened risk of harm, to develop evidence-based interventions to reduce health impacts and improve quality of life, to maintain an infrastructure that encourages community engagement, research connectivity, and data sharing, and to provide training and build capacity of researchers in various disciplines. Next slide, please. Here, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mary Masterson from NHLBI, to continue with this introduction. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Ashlinn. Lovely to see everyone here today. So here we're showing the HUE strategic framework, which serves as a roadmap for the program's research priorities and activities. At the center are the program's goals, including the understanding of health impacts of extreme weather, assessing risk across the lifespan, developing interventions, and supporting community engagement, data sharing, and building research capacity. Surrounding those goals are the scientific disciplines and approaches that help advance this work, including epidemiology, longitudinal research, implementation science, community gauge research, data integration, nutritional research, and preparedness, to name a few. Together, the framework emphasizes that addressing the health impacts of extreme weather requires rigorous interdisciplinary collaboration. Next slide, please. The HUE is intentionally designed as an NIH-wide effort, as Ashlinn noted, because extreme weather affects nearly every aspect of human health. The program brings together expertise from institutes, centers, and offices, or ICOs, as I may refer to them, spanning environmental health, child and maternal health, aging, infectious diseases, heart, lung, and blood health, cancer, mental health, nursing, and health disparities, to name a few. By bringing together these diverse areas of expertise, HUE is well positioned to foster interdisciplinary collaborations needed to better understand and address the health impacts of extreme weather and cumulative exposures. Next slide, please. So for those that wish to learn more about HUE, we have two excellent resources. The HUE website provides an overview of the program, information about ongoing research activities, research highlights that can showcase NIH-funded science, and additional resources for our investigators. The strategic framework provides a more detailed overview of the program's mission, goals, and priorities and scientific approaches, and serves as a foundation for HUE research across NIH. I highly recommend bookmarking that. And the next few slides will highlight several NIH-funded studies that bring many of these priorities to life. Next slide, please. And yeah, next slide, please. Our first study takes advantage of the natural experiments by comparing health before and after Hurricane Maria using two Puerto Rican cohorts, Parlad and Prospect, including a subset of participants measured at both time points. Although it's an observational cross-sectional study, it provides a unique opportunity to examine the longer-term health impacts of major disasters. Importantly, the investigators evaluated both physical and psychosocial outcomes. They found higher prevalence of several chronic diseases and unhealthy lifestyle behaviors after the hurricane, demonstrating the health impacts of disasters extend well beyond the immediate response. These findings underscore the importance of promoting resilient behavior, strengthening healthcare infrastructure, and improving preparedness and recovery efforts to address long-term health consequences. Next slide, please. Our second example study focuses on children, one of the populations at heightened risk for harm. The investigators leveraged the PEDSNet network, which is a multi-site pediatric research network containing health records for over 12 million children collected between 2009 and 2023, and linked those data sets with high-resolution measures of extreme weather and neighborhood environments. The richness of this data set and uniqueness allowed researchers to evaluate both acute and chronic health outcomes, including dehydration, asthma exacerbations, respiratory infections, injuries, mental health disorders, and obesity, while also examining how neighborhood-level social and infrastructural vulnerability influences risk. This is an excellent example of connecting health and environmental data to better understand how risks change across the lifespan and why some communities experience disproportionate health impacts. Next slide, please. This example highlights one of the important indirect pathways linking extreme weather and health. Rather than focusing solely on health outcomes, the investigators evaluated the interventions being used to address food insecurities in drought-prone communities. Comprehensive assessments like this are valuable because they help identify where the current approaches are succeeding and where important gaps still remain. In this case, the findings suggested many interventions remained reactive, emphasizing emergency relief rather than building long-term resilience. This type of evidence can help inform more effective preparedness, adaptation, and intervention strategies for testing. Next slide. Our final example illustrates the value of interdisciplinary research. While improving water infrastructure has been long recognized as a potential strategy for reducing mosquito-borne illnesses, this project rigorously evaluates that intervention by integrating epidemiology, engineering, geospatial analysis, mathematical modeling, and implementation science. By bringing these complementary disciplines together, we strengthen the science and generate evidence that can guide future public health interventions and changing weather conditions that alter the patterns of disease transmission. Next slide. Finally, I'd like to highlight this NIMHD resource on health disparities research. If your work includes populations experiencing health disparities, I encourage you to explore this using the QR code. It provides practical guidance on defining health disparities, selecting appropriate reference populations, and thinking carefully about the scientific questions and metrics that are most appropriate for your research. As we've seen through these examples, many of the populations disproportionately affected by extreme weather are also the populations experiencing the health disparities. Understanding how cumulative environmental, social, and biological factors influence health and generating rigorous evidence to address those disparities is central to HUE. Ultimately, HUE aims to support critical health research, dissemination of findings to the public, and catalyze interventions that promote health in the wake of extreme weather occurrences. By supporting rigorous, interdisciplinary, and community-informed research, Hughes seeks to generate evidence that is needed to strengthen preparedness, resilience, and health outcomes in populations most affected by extreme weather and cumulative exposures. So with that, I'm going to hand the baton on to my colleague at NICHD, Randy Capps. Dr. Capps?
Well, thank you, Greg, Ashlinn, and Mary. I'm Randy Capps. I'm a program official in NICHD's population research branch. Please go to the next slide. I'm here to talk about, in the changed environment, how do you apply for funding at NIH generally, and also more specifically, what we affectionately call HUE research, health and extreme weather research. So, in the past, historically, we've focused our research through three ways. One is with a general parent announcement that we tend to think of as investigator initiated. That means that you, the researchers, will design a project idea, run it by a program official, and apply, and they're quite broad. Second, we had notices of special interest, where we would narrow that somewhat by expressing a specific scientific area of study and asking you to note that notice of special interest in the application. Or third, to really narrow it down with a request for application or RFA, where we want both a specific kind of topic and some very specific details of the type of mechanism and the requirements for the project in the application. So you may have heard that things have changed at NIH, that we are moving away from that model of being very specific about what we want people to fund and moving more towards the investigator-initiated side. And for the most part, the way that that's working, although some RFAs are still coming out, is that we're using a combination of parent announcements about the broader mechanisms. Most of those are the research grants, with what we're calling highlighted topics. And unlike the notice of special interest in the past, the highlighted topic doesn't channel the application to a specific study section necessarily. It doesn't channel it specifically to an IC or a program necessarily. What it does is highlights an area of scientific interest that NIH has decided is a high priority. And the fact that there is a highlighted topic now out on the street for the HUE program represents a sort of an endorsement by the leadership of NIH. And as Ashlinn mentioned, more than a dozen institutes and centers signed onto it, that we all consider this kind of research to be a priority and that we would like to see more applications come in through the standard mechanisms and the parent announcements in these areas. So how you use it is you have to apply now on grants.gov. We're moving away from the NIH website for grants to grants.gov. You want to reach out to us, your program officials, to discuss your science, as we generally encourage with all applications, especially investigator-initiated ones. We do have funding for HUE research writ large, but because this is not a notice of special interest, it's not an RFA, we don't have set aside funding specifically for it. So if you do apply for items under this highlighted topic for HUE research, it could come out of IC specific funding, and NICHD funds some of these, and IA if they're older people, for instance, of understudy, but also some might come out of our HUE research funding. As I mentioned, mentioning a highlighted topic does not influence where your application goes for review. It does not influence which program office or IC gets it. So this is just less rigid, and you don't have to mention the highlighted topic. It will probably help if you do, but it's not required, unlike the notice of special interest in the past. Okay, next slide, please. So as mentioned, 13 institute centers and offices have signed on to that. Here's the QR code for it, and this indicates a high priority of interest. One other thing I should say, you've also probably heard that we are no longer driven as much by scores per se in how we fund things. This varies somewhat from institute to institute because my institute, NICHD, hasn't published strict pay lines in years, but generally we would fund in score order. But now we're moving towards a mixed model where that's balanced a little more so in the past by what we call program priority. And so when you have a highlighted topic and you have an area of scientific interest to NIH like you, that becomes a program priority and is also sort of weighed into the calculations in addition to the review score. Next slide, please. So once you have the highlighted topic in mind, that can help guide your science as well as all the presentation by Ashlinn and Mary as to what's on our web pages and our other materials. And then you need to find a mechanism. And of course, the most common one, our general research project grant, is the R01, and the smaller, the R21 is the more experimental or pilot, initial innovative one. The R03 is smaller. The Ks and Fs are career development and fellowship applications. There must be a parent announcement to apply for. We understand that some of the mechanisms we funded in the past don't have a parent announcement out on the street, and there are fewer RFAs. So it's mostly going to be these kind of mechanisms. But the good news is because, as Ashlinn mentioned, we want to get some research, some training funded. If you could go to the next slide, and some education funded in the Hugh area. There are 3 what we call R25 parent announcements that just came out within the last month. One of these is on courses, curriculum, and methods. One is on mentoring activities and networks, and one is on research experiences. And for those of you who might be demographers on this call, our branch in population dynamics at NICHD has used these R25s, for instance, to fund summer workshops on advanced demographic modeling and techniques, or summer workshops on how to work with data on immigration or data on mortality, for instance. So they're quite flexible for sort of short courses and things like that, as well as developing curriculum that could be applied, that a large, broad range of institutions could use. We are encouraging through the highlighted topic, which does mention training, that Hugh investments in Hugh related training and education. We would like to see applications come in that area through these mechanisms. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, I mentioned that we're making less use of RFAs, and at the moment we don't have any tailored RFAs to the Hugh program. All that we have is the highlighted topic, but we are working on creating 2 major ones. They're in what we now call forecast. This used to be called a notice of intent to publish. Now it's called a forecast, that have been out on the street for a little while with expected publication dates of the actual RFAs later this year. Now, we can't tell you publicly anything more than is in these forecasts, but I can tell you that one is on solutions-focused research hubs, and those hubs are going to be, expansions and moving and building on the research centers that we have funded over the past few years. The solutions focus means that we're looking for projects that have interventions in them across a broad potential range of few topics. And then we're looking for a coordinating center with also a data center component in it. Both of these RFAs are going to be for cooperative agreements, the U's, which if you read about them, would be more of an emphasis on us on the program side on NIH, working and developing these coordinating centers and hubs as they move forward once they're funded. But that's you can look at these codes and go to these and see the forecasts. Again, projected publication date and near the end of this calendar year, but things have been slow. I wouldn't count on it. It might take a little while longer than that. But between these 2 RFAs and the highlighted topic that I mentioned earlier, that's kind of where we are in terms of our funding opportunities and what we would like to see in terms of the applications come in the near future. So thank you. I believe that's the last of the NIH slides, so we can now move back to turn it back to you, Greg, for the cafe presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Randy, Mary, and Ashlinn for those terrific insights. And again, we're going to have leave time at the end for Q&A. Now, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the Cafe Research Coordinating Center and provide you with an overview of what we've been doing and what to look forward to in the next couple months. So the Cafe Research Coordinating Center is a joint effort between the Boston University School of Public Health and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And I'm the contact PI at Boston University, and my colleagues Amruta Nori Sarma and Francesca Dominici are the two MPIs at the Harvard School of Public Health. And you'll hear today from the leads of our different efforts from both institutions. And broadly, our mission is to accelerate the pace of research and translation in extreme weather and health by supporting, growing, and enabling the community of practice. So everything you see we do here is to try to help accelerate your work, amplify your work, and enable more people to join this exciting community to make even more progress. Next slide. So I love to start with this because this is kind of a roadmap of what can Cafe do for you. And this is available on our website under the About section. So I'll let you look at it there in more detail. And maybe Elaine or Lily, you can post the link in the chat. But we're going to give you a high-level view of some of the opportunities through here, and I encourage you to return to this figure frequently to think about how our resources, the resources we're developing for the community, can help accelerate your work. Next slide. And one more. Okay, so let me start by inviting Rachel Nethery, who is Associate Professor of Biostatistics at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, and I'm one of the co-leads of one of the sort of functional areas within Cafe. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing and hopefully what we can offer you in the community. So one of the key functions of Cafe generally is to bring together the health and extreme weather research community to try to share information and resources and foster connections and collaborations. And so in that vein, Cafe hosts a number of different types of events, like the webinar that we're all at right now. So our largest type of public-facing events are what we call half-day events, and these are virtual events that are focused on a particular topic in health and extreme weather research. And these events, as the name suggests, usually last about half a day, and they're composed of several sessions, usually an expert panel, some lightning talks, and a hands-on workshop or training of some kind. So previous half-day event topics have been hurricanes and health, wildfires and health, infectious disease and extreme weather. And then we have several half-day events planned for the upcoming year, likely one in September and December of 2026 and April of 2027. So be on the lookout in the Cafe newsletter for more information about the specific topics and dates for those coming soon. Next slide, please. Another type of event that we regularly host is the webinar series that we call Cafe University. And these are shorter educational webinars on health and extreme weather related topics. We usually have one or two of these per month, and they're both live streamed and also recorded and then posted on our Cafe YouTube site for asynchronous viewing. The Cafe University webinars have covered a really wide range of topics at all different experience levels, including lots of data science and statistical methods related content, and state of the science webinars where we kind of review what's known and unknown about health impacts of various different types of extreme weather events. We have several of these Cafe University webinars planned for the remainder of the summer and fall, including one in August that'll be focused on health and extreme weather in Australia and the South Pacific, and then one in September focusing on green space measures and DVI. And so we're always interested to hear if you all have suggestions for topics that would be useful to cover in these webinars. So please shoot us an email if you have ideas for topics that we haven't covered in these webinars that you'd like to see in a future one. Next slide, please. So if you're kind of after more personalized support than what's provided in our webinars and educational materials, we also have a cafe mentorship program. And the first iteration of this program was designed to provide support for early stage investigators that were aiming to submit health and extreme weather related grant proposals. The cohort included about 20 folks, and we used a multi-tiered engagement model for this program, which included both one-on-one mentorship as well as regular sort of group meetings and co-mentorship. And we got really good feedback from mentees in this first iteration saying that the support that they received from this program was useful for their career progress. Next slide, please. And so we're about to start a second iteration of this mentorship program. And we currently have a call for mentors, folks who want to serve as mentors in this program. It's out in the field. So if you're a senior investigator and you'd be interested in some relatively light lift mentorship of junior investigators, we'd ask that you please fill out our mentor volunteer form that's linked here and was also linked in the last cafe newsletter, I believe. This program is not going to be quite as one-on-one mentorship focused as the previous iteration. Instead, it's going to be centered around 3 or 4 virtual sessions, where in each session we have a guest speaker talking about a topic closely related to grant proposal development. And then at the end of the sessions, we'll have breakout discussions where mentees and mentors can discuss specifics about the proposals that mentees are preparing. We plan to start recruiting mentees for this program later this summer. So again, be on the lookout in the cafe newsletter for more detail when that call is released. Next slide, please. We also provide support through a more sort of informal program that we call research matchmaking, where we collect applications from researchers that are looking for expertise or collaboration or data on a particular topic, and we try to connect them with other researchers or resources that can help them. And over the past year, we've provided support to 45 people from all over the world. It's not strictly US folks. So anybody anywhere can apply for this. And starting in the next few weeks, I believe we're also going to be offering some peer-to-peer mentorship matchmaking for PhD students and postdocs through this, what we call research matchmaking tool. So if there are resources or collaborations that you're looking for, you can apply to be matched with those resources using a form which we're, I believe, currently updating, and we're planning to release a new version of it in about a week. So again, you can find that as with everything in the cafe newsletter coming soon. And next slide, and I think that's also going to pass it over to my function co-lead, John Levy, if he is still on the call, who will talk about the pilot project program.
Great. Thanks so much, Rachel. So as Rachel mentioned, I'm co-leading the capacity building function, and we've run a pilot project program over the past couple of years. As you can see on the left-hand side, where the goal is really, like in many pilot project programs, to help to catalyze future research, allow for some preliminary data collection and methods development to inform future grants. Across 2 funding cycles, we have issued 11 awards across 9 different states, 3 different countries. You can see there the list of topics which really span the spectrum of health and extreme weather across multiple endpoints, mental health, maternal health, for example, as well as multiple different exposures like heat, flooding, and aeroallergens. For the first cycle of grantees, which were funded back in 2024, we've already started to see some outputs, which is exciting. 2 of the grantees have received grants subsequent to their pilot work, and we've seen a couple of publications. There's a lot more in the queue. The year 2 grantees who were funded last year are just wrapping up their funding cycle now. We certainly anticipate good things to come there. And the great news is that we are having another round of project funding that will be coming soon. It will be structured slightly differently than previously. It will certainly follow and anticipate a lot of the HUE themes mentioned earlier, including an emphasis on solutions and interventions, but you'll be able to see a lot more when the RFA is issued. It should be in late July with applications due in the subsequent months. So please stay tuned, and we strongly encourage more applications. So with that, I'll hand it over to, not sure who the next speaker is.
It's me. I'll take it over. Hi, everyone. I'm Gaurab. I'm an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School and Harvard School of Public Health. I lead the resource function team, which helps collaborations and coordination of resources across the community of practice. So I'm going to be fairly brief today and just introduce one opportunity that I hope people will consider applying to. And its applications are live as of this week, so it's good timing. And this is a public narrative workshop. And so, really, the principle of this approach is that stories are really impactful, that they hold power to inspire change and motivate action and build community by weaving together these kind of personal stories of why we do what we do and why we are supporting the communities that we support, even when things are hard and it's difficult to, make progress on some of these big issues. Um, and I just want to highlight, I think this marries and complements, the scientific work we do so well. The research that all of you do is so impactful, and we know from research that the data and research married with storytelling can really allow so many more people to understand its importance. And so I'll tell you a little bit about our experience so far, but first let me just tell you a little bit about the structure. It's a 2-hour online session. There's 4 different sessions. It'll be held in the fall again. And there's large group instruction where you get a lot of the overarching education, but then we have coaches who are well experienced in teasing out, just the right ways to work through your stories to make them make impact. So it's a real opportunity to get some personalized coaching in really small groups and really work on your own story. This is derived from the public narrative framework that Marshall Gantz at the Harvard Kennedy School has developed over decades, and is framed in these 3 kind of principles that interweave together. It's the story of self, story of us, and story of now. I'll just very briefly say the story of self really is this kind of what are the values that motivate the work that I do? How do I show up to be a leader in this work? The story of us is how you combine that personal story of your calling to kind of make connections with others so that people feel a sense of shared values. So suddenly it's not just you making the argument for something, but people feel interconnectedness of that shared work that they are trying to do. And then the story of now is to create some urgency, why your particular area of interest deserves attention and help galvanize people to join on and to support your work. We've had 2 cohorts so far. Again, we'll be running our 3rd this fall. We've had about 44 individuals participate in it. I've done a lot of this in kind of the medical field. This is one of the first times that we've implemented it into a kind of public health cohort. And I'll just say it's been really impressive. It might sound a little bit hard or a new muscle, but people have been very, very talented and very eager to try this on. And it makes the research so much more even impressive when you do it through a storytelling lens. So now I'll just briefly talk about this upcoming cycle. Again, please join us, give it a try. We do ask that people participate in all of the sessions and really kind of participate with the video on and to give it a try. The kind of trying on of the storytelling skill set is really important. The applications are due August 28th. Elaine, thank you so much for putting that in the chat there. So please consider clicking in there and taking a look and putting in a pretty simple application. And hope to see many of you in the fall. With that, I'll pass it to Professor Lane.
Thanks, Gaurab. I'm just going to go ahead and walk you all through the Cafe Day management side. We're just going to share because we're going to actually up the level of difficulty on the presentation and try to do a little bit of live show and tell as well. First, I want to introduce myself. I'm Kevin Lane. I'm Associate Professor of Environmental Health at the Boston University School of Public Health, and I co-lead the CAFE data management function with my colleague Daniel Braun from the Harvard School of Public Health. And through the CAFE data management, what we're trying to do is really help to facilitate the sharing and reuse of the Hugh data. One being the generators, the amazing research you all are doing in developing new exposure metrics and different ways to apply these two different epidemiological findings. And we do that through a couple different ways. One is through actually sharing through an open data repository. Here we use the Harvard Dataverse. We also have developed a GitHub to help promote data science and best practices using different softwares, tools, and approaches to process, link, and analyze common health and extreme weather data sets by having a CAFE GitHub that can also link and showcase other GitHubs that you might be also developing to help share code and help accelerate the pace of Hugh research that's going on. Additionally, we provide guidance on data management and dissemination through not only providing some frameworks for helping to inform data management, share, and plan, but also, as you saw through Gaurab, through different educational ways to help disseminate the results of your work as well through different trainings. Additionally, we work with Hugh research data by pulling the community of practice, which is a part of our newsletters, but also we've been able to conduct surveys in the population to identify what are some of the research needs, as well as potential challenges or barriers that need to be overcome to help facilitate and expand data sharing. We also work very closely with a number of other RCCs from other NIH-related research areas to help identify common data elements and build a harmonized environmental exposome with a focus on Hugh-based ontologies as well by collaborating broadly with the community of practice. One key thing that the CAFE data management function does not do is we don't act as the actual data processors or analysis service center for any one individual research project. Our real focus is on that curation of the commonly used data sets and code and pipelines to help facilitate and expand the work that you're doing to accelerate that rapid pace of growth of research. When it comes to the CAFE data repository, we focus on working within the Harvard Dataverse, which is the largest installation across the globe and has the largest holdings, and has also been around for over 20 years now. And one of the benefits of utilizing the CAFE Dataverse in our RCC is that we have a very close relationship with the Harvard Dataverse programmers and have set up an infrastructure which allows collaborators to share their data in a public way. We also can create large storage capacity to meet the needs of different groups. We've been able to handle even over 100 terabytes of data that's coming from an individual group so that it can be found and deposited within the repository. Additionally, with every deposit that you make of your data, you receive a DOI. So as you're thinking about publishing your papers or potentially in future grants, thinking about where you might want to store the data and deliverables, you might want to consider the CAFE Dataverse as one of those options as well, because you can get with it just like you would with Zenoda, a DOI. One of the other benefits is you have direct UI as well as API downloads, so you can integrate this into different work products as well. We also have the capability of being able to record downloads. And this is one of the areas I'll mention at the end where we're expanding right now this year so that we can able to provide better metrics for depositors to be able to know the downloads, what they're doing, and linking that with potential citations of the data as well. Additionally, a big element is the standard compliant metadata. We have nice tutorials, trainings to help quickly set you up with an account and provide you with the opportunity to build in your metadata. We're also building towards AI integration to help read in some of these metadata pieces to help ease that structure as well. And by building a common metadata schema, not only within the CAFE Dataverse, but by collaborating with other research coordinating centers, we've been able to have an interoperable findability between some of the NSF data repositories, such as DesignSafe, and the CAFE Dataverse, making some of the geoscientists' data available and findable within CAFE and vice versa. What I'm going to do next is just take us out to the website to be able to show you how to find these resources if you want to investigate them yourselves. So you can visit the CAFE website, and then underneath our resource and funding tab here, you can find our CAFE Dataverse and Code and Resources. Here we have our Dataverse, as well as just below, we have our GitHub that you can link to. Within our Dataverse, We have a number of different holdings. Originally, when we set out to do this project, we were thinking we could get a few hundred data sets at the end of our first 3 years of the projects. Now we've actually been able to be quite successful, where we've been able to expand this through a number of different efforts to have over 1,300 data sets deposited. And these are not individual files, these are individual deposits, which can be made up of multiple different data sets. So we have the capability of being able to provide an area where the community of practice is now going to place data sets. Additionally, we can harvest from different locations. And what that means is not directing people to be able to copy the data set into the Harvard Dataverse itself that we have for Café, but making your data sets findable within the system itself. And Design Safe is an example of this, where we've been able to extract data through harvesting, but push people back out to the original location of the data so that the metrics on downloads can be retained within that system. Additionally, we've been able to provide some large data repository backups for other projects such as the season. So making data sets that are really key to the health and extreme weather available again through the Café system. And it provides easy key term search findability. So we could type in different keywords to be able to look and find different types of data within these. And we can see a number of different metrics here as an example for wildfire. One of the examples of our earlier data sets that were deposited was a Marissa Childs data set on ambient wildfire smoke, and has been broadly downloaded by almost 3,000 times, allowing for your data to not only be able to have metrics on download, but also providing you with a DOI so that you can cite your data set as well and provide key descriptive information tied to it as well. So there's a number of different ways that the Café Dataverse might be able to help your projects and be able to expand and be reached by others in the field. Addition to this is if you're developing different code products as well, we have our GitHub. And within our GitHub, we have a number of different training modules on how to go about sharing data within the Café system, as well as if you want to directly link to the Café and see what actual different GitHub data sets we've developed. So under here, we have our actual tutorials. Some of these we've developed ourselves, where we have different vignettes of how you can work within our system related to aggregation, a lot of these being more global applications of different extreme weather data sets. But we've also been able to fork and be able to provide this as linkable to other groups as well. So now there's over 100 different Hue-based recommended GitHubs that we can send people to. So I highly recommend that you take a moment and try to look within what we have for some of the GitHub offerings. Additionally, I can provide here just a very quick background. So we have the QR. So the two key areas that we can help you with when it comes to the data management function is the contributing of data. So we have a quick little QR code here on how you can do that process. And then also through our GitHub as well. The best thing we find is linking all these together with our other programs as well, tying a tutorial training symposium with data releases and potentially making code available. We've been able to provide that as a multi-level way for people to reach out to the community more broadly with a unified package, but we're happy to help in any way we can. Some of the future directions of what we're working on next is really towards trying to make the data more findable and interoperable for different users as well. Really trying to provide extra support for depositors as a benefit to not only having your data be findable, but also getting report outs on how many downloads you're receiving at different times throughout the year, as well as information on citations of those data DOIs. Additionally, we're working on dashboard measures and visualizations, as well as trying to update some of these key data contributions so that they're being maintained with updates as time moves forward. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Greg.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to John, Rachel, Gaurab, and Kevin for presenting. So we threw a lot of dates and information at you, so I just wanted to summarize it here. You can see some of the things that are up and coming. Lots of activities, more to come. The best place to find this information is the combination of our newsletter, which comes out approximately every two weeks, and following us on socials, and you can see that on the next slide. There you go. So you have follow us on the website's always a great resource, but the LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and the newsletter are going to be updated much more often. Everything we do, we record for posterity, and we have a YouTube channel that contains all these recordings. They get a lot of downloads, a lot of traffic, so feel free to check it out there. And I'll mention that we have an educational resource hub that whenever we find or you send us things that you say this is a great resource that we should, put together somewhere. We have that on our website, and it's searchable and easy to find resources on a particular topic. So, Elaine, I think that was the last slide. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. So let me thank all the speakers and now turn it back over to the Q&A. I see that we've been answering questions sort of as we go, which is great. And Kevin, maybe I'll pitch the first one to you about Converge. There was a question in the chat about what relationship we have with Converge or plans for the future.
Oh, sure. I believe that's the National Hazards Research
That's right.
Center. Yes. So this is very opportune. We just presented with Lori Peak and are going to be following up on trying to have those be more transferable. Right now, data sets that might be within the national hazards and coming through, for instance, the RAPID program, where researchers are depositing them within Design Safe, we actually are able to automatically extract and make them findable again. Every month, our system runs a scan for relevant data sets and makes them findable within our CAFE Dataverse, but we are planning to do more collaborations with that group as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And Ashlinn, I know that you've answered, or you and the team have answered several questions, but is there anything you wanted to elevate for further elaboration?
Oh, thanks, Greg. I think maybe I'll just reiterate, because there were a couple questions about this, saying like, how do I apply to this funding opportunity, or what is this specific funding opportunity? And we're in a little bit of a situation right now where we don't have any specific funding opportunities within the Health and Extreme Weather Program. So I just wanted to reiterate that. What we do have are a couple, what we are now calling forecasts, which means we have some in development, but they are not available yet. And we will just have to wait for further details on that. But in the meantime, I do want to emphasize that we have a highlighted topic, which Randy Capps explained earlier. And what the highlighted topic is an announcement to the academic community, the research community, that NIH is welcoming your applications that fit within the scope of health and extreme weather to any open funding opportunity at NIH, any of them. So this could be a parent R01 mechanism. It could be a parent, F31 fellowship application. It could be a parent R25 educational opportunity application, or any other one. We've only mentioned like a very tiny subset of the number of open announcements at NIH. So I encourage you to explore grants.gov, see what funding opportunities are out there that might be applicable to the project that you're thinking about, or the training or educational project that you might want to do. And if you can think of something that you want to do that fits within the scope of science for health and extreme weather, we all encourage you to submit that application. We consider those to be what we call investigator-initiated applications, because they just come in from you, your ideas. We know that you, the academic community, are the greatest source of inspiration and innovation for science in general. So we want all your ideas to come in as proposals that fit within the scope of health and extreme weather. So hopefully that helps clarify that point a little bit.
Yeah, so it seems to me as an individual investigator that's been a real shift over the last year in how NIH prioritizes topics and communicates those priorities to the community. So you all in the audience would be forgiven for sort of being maybe initially confused. So I can vouch that the program officers are always happy to talk to people about how to take great ideas and maximize the opportunities for funding. Mary, I wanted to ask you to reiterate, because there were some questions in the chat around health disparities and whether that really is that really an NIH priority, and is the NIMHD, which focuses on health disparities in population, are they still really engaged? And I know the answers you gave in the chat there were a resounding yes to both of those, but I was hoping you could expand on that.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. It's really important to, use this as an opportunity to communicate this to the research community. Health disparities research is still a central focus. We just wish to clarify that it's solution oriented. So as you're designing your proposals, really emphasizing the importance of the metrics in what is informing the selection of certain key populations and ensuring that the research approach is aligned with agency priorities. So are you using testable hypotheses, measurable constructs, so forth? So please continue to work with communities like such as that, because we do know that there's an extreme overlap between those that are experiencing health disparities and those that are also experiencing these weather-related events. So hopefully just take advantage of those links, and I'm sure Cafe has been sharing it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think, again, speaking only as an individual investigator, it's easy to see in Reporter what is being funded. And there you can see that, health disparities is very much still a part of the funding portfolio.
Really, I want to also emphasize that NIMHD also is very heavily involved within HUE itself. In fact, their director did come to the symposium that we hosted and spoke with our investigators. So this isn't just a gentle interest, it is an actual active area for that institute. And we'd be happy to put you in contact with some of the program officials. That would be great to reach out to. And I think they're even cited or included on the highlighted topic as a point of contact.
Ashlinn, you started at the beginning with sort of a list of kind of what we mean by extreme weather and related hazards. And whenever you put up a list like that, the inevitable question is, what about this? So I was, and I know you answered that in the Q&A, but wanted to give you the opportunity to elevate that thread of, sort of how expansive is the definition of extreme weather?
Thanks. Yeah, that was certainly just a list of examples. So, anyone listening should not take that as, the be all end all of what you can study for health and extreme weather. That's not the intent at all. I think a lot of the weather-related disasters that we know about or could think about would be within the scope. So, wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, coastal flooding, all those kinds of things are within the scope. But also, some of the more cumulative impacts of just weather conditions. So hot weather, cold weather, wet weather, any kind of cumulative impacts that those conditions might have either directly on health or indirectly, as I mentioned, on kind of other pathways that could lead to health. They're all kind of within the scope of the program. But for anyone who's thinking about a specific research topic and wants to learn more about whether it's responsive to the highlighted topic and probably more importantly whether it fits a specific NIH institute's priorities, I really encourage you to email a program official at the institute where you think your research might best fit. And discuss it more, because as Randy was mentioning earlier, we are kind of being a little bit more driven by institute priorities now than in the past, and it's really a good idea to run your proposal by program officials before you go through the heavy work of putting together and submitting an actual application.
Great, thank you. Let me pivot for just a second to Kevin and in the data management function. So, I know because we talk a lot about sort of your dual mandate of helping people find data, so making data available to others, but also helping investigators that want to share data sort of, elevate their data, make it visible and findable, but also attributable with a DOI. Can you just talk a little bit more about that dual role of like, we're trying to help people, that need data find data, but also helping kind of those that like supplying data sort of be more effective at that. Can you just maybe talk a little bit about that dichotomy?
Sure. This is actually something that we're sort of excited about in the field as general, is sort of, especially when it comes to health, is how willing people are to share their data. And to help continue to facilitate that, it's going to require sort of a broad system improvement on people being willing to also cite not just manuscripts, but also the data themselves, which is a key element here. So with every single data set that's placed into it, you get a DOI attached to it, and it's becoming more common with journal articles to do that. So I think that's a nice framework that the CAFE team provides is through the Dataverse system, you get the DOI. You also will with other things like Zenodo and other places as well. It can also be found through the National Library of Medicine as well. So it just makes the availability and accessibility of the data that much higher. Greg, is that fit in the goal?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
And Randy, let me ask you to comment on this great question that came in the chat. If you can talk a little bit more about kind of the weeds of the review process for HEW. So, will the funding decision depend on the score? You mentioned that you're not beholden to scores or priority funding in that order anymore. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, and then sort of like how does the score play in then versus institutional priorities?
Sure. And this, again, may vary somewhat from institute to institute. In our institute, we moved away from a pay line, like everything below 14% gets funded for established investigator R01s and everything under 25% for early stage investigators, to zones a while ago, where within a certain range of percentages, it's likely to be funded. And in past years, when an application is out of the score order, so we don't want to fund one that scores at 10%. Instead, we want to fund one that scores at 12%. We would need to justify that, what we call a skip, through either program portfolio, available funding, or some other reason. Now, what we've been directed to do is to consider the score as much more advisory. And additionally, we need to justify every single application, like not necessarily going to our council with it, but we need to do a write-up showing how each grant that we're going to fund matches NIH's overall priority. So we have to show it's in scope for NIH. And we could talk a little bit more about that, I suppose, at length, but basically we need to show how it's relevant to the public health mission of NIH, a little more narrowly defined than it has been in the past. And if it is, this is really important for the person who asked about the PF5, if it's going to be outside the US, it needs to be justified in terms of benefit to the health of a US population. It can't just be about global health anymore. It can be about that, but it additionally has to be about relevance to the health of the US population. So we have our own institute program priorities, but we also need to write a justification for every grant in terms of NIH-wide priorities, and additionally, in the case of international research, the relevant to the US health. So that's a bit different, and we have a little bit more freedom to not just stick to our zones and score, fund things that score a little bit more highly. Even right now with this odd third, it used to be half are discussed and half are not, and the half that are not can't be funded, and half that are get a score. Now it's a third scored discussed, a third competitive not discussed, and a third not discussed and not fundable. That middle third we can fund even though there isn't a priority score on it, if we can make the case that it's high program priority. And at our council meeting, we have looked at a fair number of those. And so that does give us some flexibility when there's a really important scientific question, or there's a piece of the infrastructure puzzle or the training puzzle that can uniquely be done by one institution or one application. And the reviewers didn't get that during the review, that they missed the really high significance of this. The NIH director has even said this publicly, that sometimes reviewers miss the significance and focus too much on the details of the approach, and that lowers the score. So there is this kind of, I don't want to say imperative, but this ability to fund things based on program priority and larger significance without focusing as much on the score. And I think there's going to be a lot more debate about that going forward. I've heard that the next council round, we're still doing competitiveness, not discussed, but the one after that will be back to half discussed, half not discussed. But there's a longer term conversation going on, both publicly and within NIH, about how much to weigh scores versus other funding priorities.
But just to summarize, and Randy, thank you for the comprehensive explanation, but Ultimately, we want our investigators to come in with very strong applications, really emphasizing and putting the science first. This is all a bunch of process steps that are changing and evolving as we are moving through this, but especially in light of health and extreme weather, focusing centrally on the science, focusing on the question, and really leaning into that framework that I believe Randy, myself, and Ashlinn were speaking towards for how we can guide the research forward and what research you as individuals and your partners are trying to put forward. So really just think about the science, put your applications in, then we'll go through reviews and we'll move from there. And of course, please do engage your program officers as you move through the process if you have additional questions.
Thank you so much, Randy and Mary, for that additional context. Ashlinn or anybody from the cafe folks, anything that you wish somebody had asked that they didn't? Okay, if not, last call for questions from the audience. Okay. Well, thank you so much to all of you for taking time out today to be here, both on the speaker side and on the audience side. It's really heartwarming to see how strong the Health and Extreme Weather program at NIH is. I think you mentioned 17 institute centers and offices. I don't know of how many other efforts in NIH history have had such broad and enduring support. So I want to take a minute to thank the program staff that this doesn't happen by accident or because people just bump into each other. This is a multi-year effort that has led us to this point. On behalf of the research community, thank you so much for your leadership in this space and for enabling all of us to continue the research into risks and solutions. So thank you all very much, and we will see you at an event again soon.